Well, good evening, this is Hound Dog Steve wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we are going to talk about the hidden Conservative voter. And once again I see this term coming to the fore. I was reading an article on Sunday by a chap called Warren Kinsella, who is a Liberal consultant, lobbyist, writing in the Sun newspaper, which is kind of interesting because the Sun tends to be a bit of a conservative leaning newspaper. Anyway, he was posing the theory that it is the hidden Conservative voter that made the difference in the Brexit vote, in the Hillary Clinton vote, and in the recent Jason Kenney Alberta vote, where a Conservative government came out and won by a much greater majority than was actually thought was going to happen. And of course, same thing happened in the Hillary Clinton or the 2016 election, where it was supposed to be 93% to 7% for Hillary Clinton, and it turned out to be a very close race indeed. But I think that something that Mr. Kinsella is not taking into consideration, firstly, is the insulting tone of his article, which basically states, that basically Conservatives are working class and there are more degrees in Liberal people, and so that is why Conservatives vote so closely with ideologues like Donald Trump and Boris Johnson, who is going to win the Conservative vote in England, and that will be another video in and of itself. But yes, maybe Mr. Kinsella is not taking into account the fact that when you insult people to their faces, and this is exactly what was being said in Brexit, that you were a lowbrow, you were a knuckle-dragger, you were an anti-Semite, you were a homophobe, you were a racist. They called you a backward thinker, every insulting term that you could think of. And so people who might have been neutral in the situation, who might not have voted at all, you don't take too kindly when you're being insulted like that, just because you might have a difference of opinion. And of course, in all of these situations, we are only given an opportunity to vote for A or B. There was no nuance in the Brexit vote, for example. The biggest problem with the European Union is the bureaucracy. It's that a hidden bureaucracy makes all of the decisions on behalf of all of the people, and there is no way to intercede in that decision-making process. The politicians are ineffective and ineffectual, and so the general population saw that they were losing more and more control over the decision-making processes that directly affected their lives. And you'll see with this chart below that when you look at the college and university degrees between Republicans and Democrats, they are very, very close. In fact, the Republicans had more some college and college degrees, and it was only 5% more Democrats had degrees than Conservatives. These kind of margins are almost meaningless when it comes to voting, okay? And so as Hillary Clinton referred to these people as a basket of deplorables, that gets people's backs up right away. There is no point of conciliation, there is no opportunity for dialogue when you start name-calling at that level. And this is what's gone wrong with the pollsters. Is it a hidden Conservative vote? I don't think it's necessarily a hidden Conservative vote. I think it is a hidden vote. Anybody who goes against the Marxist narrative is considered a white supremacist. I mean, for goodness sake, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came out the other day and called Bernie Sanders a right-winger because he didn't support her on a $15 minimum wage. Okay, so if you are right of Bernie Sanders now, you are a far-right extremist. I mean, how insane is all of this? And so no wonder the vote is hidden. And of course, when you only have B as an alternative to A, if you didn't like Hillary Clinton or President Trump, who are you going to vote for? And so if you didn't want Clinton, your only alternative was not to vote or to vote for Trump. And this is a big issue, even with Brexit. What are you going to do? I think that the problem, as I say, there was the bureaucracy, the unelected decision-making that was taking place, the lack of consulting with the public, and this is what David Cameron was asking for from the EU, and I think this is what led to the vote. because he wanted a firm mandate to move forward, because he wasn't happy with the way the EU was being run and the loss of autonomy within and sovereignty within Britain. Anyway, let's flip over to this quick article and I'll come back and do a quick wrap up. Okie dokie, here we go. The Toronto Sun, Kinsella, election outcomes swayed by the hidden Conservative voter. And see if you could detect the negative tone towards the Conservative voter, even in the opening lines. They're hidden. They showed up, however, at Brexit. They showed up in the US presidential race in 2016. They showed up in Alberta in 2019 and Ontario in 2018 too. Just like cockroaches or bed bugs, they're hidden. They're the THCV, the hidden Conservative voter, and they're changing politics. June 2016, shocking just about everyone. 52% of Britons voted to leave the European Union. No one really expected that result, including many of those who campaigned for Brexit. Polls conducted in the years leading up to the Brexit vote consistently showed public opinion split on the EU membership question. A year before the crucial vote, support for the European Union spiked upwards, with many more Brits favouring remaining than leaving. That perhaps may have been what persuaded then Prime Minister David Cameron to push for a vote. It was a critical error, as historians will forever note. You mean it was a critical error to allow the public to speak, Mr. Kinsella? Subsequent vote analysis showed that young Brits favoured remaining in the Union. So did big business, lawyers, economists, scientists and the well-to-do. Voters with lower incomes and fewer high education degrees, however, just didn't. And they, unlike young Brits and the others, came out to vote. The Leave side surged on voting day. Pollsters and pundits hadn't seen it coming, neither did the bookies, even on the day of the vote. Ladbrokes had been giving 6-to-1 odds that Brexit would fail. What happened? Sifting through the Brexit results afterwards, public opinion experts and political scientists saw something they hadn't previously spotted. What they called, antiseptically, unrepresentative samples. In other words, pollsters had too many stay voters in their computers and not nearly enough leave voters. That the British Polling Council determined after a lengthy inquiry was the basic problem. What is most shocking is that the pollsters repeated their error in the US presidential race, which happened just a few weeks after Brexit. Every single pollster pretty much got it wrong again. New York Times declared Hillary Clinton, who, full disclosure, this writer worked for in 3 different states in 2016, had an 85% chance of victory. Huffington Post said she had a 98% chance of winning. The respected poll analyst Nate Silver pegged her chances at 67%, while Princeton University went even further, saying it was 99%. All wrong, wrong, wrong. And I wonder why that could have been, with a basket of deplorables. And as in Brexit, the same thing happened. Pollsters had relied on unrepresentative samples, allowing Trump voters to hide in effect. Well, no, as I said, they've been insulted so much. They just kept quiet. Anyone who had a different opinion than the Hillary Clinton side ended up had to be quiet because there was no discussion allowed. One analyst told GQ that Trump voters hid on purpose. It may also turn out to be the case that supporters for Donald Trump were shamed into keeping their support quiet. They were shamed into having a different opinion. They didn't necessarily support Donald Trump. They just had no other alternatives. Shy Trump supporters may have kept their support secret from pollsters out of social pressure not to admit their support for a candidate labelled as racist and sexist. The same sort of things happened in recent Canadian electoral contests. Polls in Alberta suggested the race between Jason Kenney's United Conservative Party and Rachel Notley's New Democratic Party was far closer than it ended up being. Ditto in Ontario. The year before, mid-campaign polls proclaimed Andrea Howarth's New Democrats had moved ahead of Doug Ford's Progressive Conservatives, but it wasn't so. The PC vote surged on voting day and won a huge majority government. The moral of the story here is clear. Pollsters are either missing conservative-leaning voters in their sampling, or those voters are keeping their intentions secret, until they sit down with a stubborn pencil and a ballot, that is. It's the THCV, the Hidden Conservative Vote, and it's changing outcomes in elections across Western democracy. And for guys like Conservative leader Andrew Scheer, the THCV could be very good news in October. Well, Mr. Kinsella, as long as you keep insulting people, yes, you are going to see results like this, because people do not like to be called stupid, backward, ignorant, racist or prejudiced, when merely they could be just dissatisfied with the way the government's being run and they're not allowed to speak up. So now I'm actually wondering whether the Liberals and the Democrats will learn from their mistakes, and that instead of focusing in attack ads and fear-mongering, that they should focus on their platform. Because right now, Donald Trump aside, just set that to one side, the Democrats are fighting bitterly within their own party, and there is no platform. I see nothing, no offering of what they're going to do if they're elected, other than raise taxes and fiddle around with their health care. Or if you get into the Green Plan with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, no one seems to know how they're going to pay for all of these wonderful things that are being offered. And you know, I don't like to be a naysayer. Of course, I like the idea of free healthcare and free dental care and free drugs and all the rest of it, but there has to be some kind of economic reality to the situation. I mean, I don't care what anybody says, however wishful these things and however nice these things would be, the reality of hard economics affects all of us, and we know that. Anyone who pays a mortgage or rent or has bills to pay knows that if they don't pay those bills, there is a consequence, a harsh consequence. So those economic realities exist regardless of what we would like to have and not have. And nobody's telling me how this is going to be worked out. There's no middle ground. There's no way to say in the EU that to back off on the bureaucracy. You know, sort of go halfway with the EU. I loved the ideas that member states in the EU, that people could travel freely across borders. This really mitigated a lot of the employment issues in different countries. It was when they amalgamated the country and decided to go for full central totalitarian control from Brussels. And anybody who questions that now is considered to have wrong think and wrong speak. So of course those people will keep quiet. And on voting day, they will come out in droves because they've basically been insulted and humiliated to their face, told that their ideas are stupid, foolish and uneducated. What did you expect? I mean, come on. If your IQ is above room temperature, surely you could figure out, have a little empathy here and figure out how other people might feel when they are losing their jobs, their children are losing their futures. And these are big issues that affect Liberals, Republicans, Democrats and Conservatives alike. And writing this kind of divisive nonsense, which is poorly thought out and is basically only looking at the very, very narrow reasons why this might have happened. And of course this is absolutely inconceivable to the globalists that anybody might not like what they're doing. And you know, in many ways I do see that we need to have a more unified way of governing our resources and the world. We can surely do that without the control mechanisms that are being put in place for the public. And again, I'm always amazed at this. I would have thought that the public would have been your greatest ally, but in fact it seems like we're being treated like the worst enemy there is. Anyway, this confusion, this division that this kind of think piece does and brings about in our society is unconscionable. We should be getting along, and we will not succeed until we can all come together and discuss the kind of future that we all want to see. Okay, well, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe below. And in the meantime, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we will talk to you very, very shortly. See you now. Bye.